A Karen walked into my restaurant claiming the owner promised her a VIP table. But I am the owner, and I've never seen this woman in my life. Picture this. It's peak holiday season, my restaurant is absolutely packed, reservations booked solid since July, and this entitled woman strolls in with her crew of mini Karens, demanding our celebrity VIP table. She's throwing around my name like we're best friends, telling her group how the owner always keeps special tables for people like us. The thing is, my family has owned this place for 3 generations. I've worked here since I was 15, I modernized everything, turned it into the hottest spot in town where actual celebrities dine, and I'm standing right there in my server uniform, greeting guests, because that's what hands-on owners do when it gets crazy busy. She had no idea she was lying directly to the person she was lying about. Now, I could have just told her, "Ma'am, I'm the owner. We've never met. Please leave." Duh. But where's the fun in that? Instead, I decided to play along and see exactly how far this entitled princess would take her little charade. What happened next was the most expensive lesson in humility I've ever served. By the end of the night, she racked up a bill that made her cry actual tears, learned some harsh truths about treating service workers like garbage, and gave me the most satisfying revenge story I'll probably ever have. Her daddy even showed up 2 days later trying to get the charges reversed. Spoiler alert, that didn't go well for them either. So buckle up, because this is the story of how I taught a lying Karen that you should never ever mess with someone's business when you don't know who you're talking to. Here's exactly how I made her pay. Literally, for every single lie she told. Before I tell you how I absolutely destroyed this Karen's night, you need to understand the full backstory of my restaurant and how I ended up in the position to serve her the ultimate reality check. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy back in the 1970s with nothing but a dream and some killer family recipes. They opened up this tiny little Italian joint in what was honestly a pretty rough neighborhood at the time. Nothing fancy. Just checkered tablecloths, plastic chairs, and my grandmother's incredible homemade pasta that kept the locals coming back. And when my grandparents passed away, the restaurant went to my parents. Over the decades, they slowly grew and expanded it, but it was still very much a neighborhood family spot. You know the type. Regulars who came in every Sunday after church, birthday parties for local kids, that kind of place. Steady business, but nothing spectacular. I started working there when I was 15, doing everything from washing dishes to buzzing tables to eventually waiting on customers. By the time I graduated high school, I knew this business inside and out. I could prep the kitchen, handle the books, manage staff, deal with suppliers. Basically everything except cook like my grandmother, but hey, nobody could do that. When my parents hit their 60s, they decided they were done with Canadian winters and became snowbirds, heading to Florida every year from November through March. A few years ago, they officially handed the restaurant over to me, though they kept a small percentage ownership as part of their retirement income. That's when I decided to completely transform the place. I'm talking total renovation. Ripped out those old checkered tablecloths, brought in an interior designer, updated the lighting, created an actual ambiance instead of just family restaurant vibes. I changed our logo, hired a marketing company, reached out to local food bloggers and critics. I even took out a massive loan to upgrade our kitchen equipment and expand our wine selection. For the first 6 months, I was absolutely terrified I had made the biggest mistake of my life. The loan payments were crushing me, we were spending way more on ingredients for our elevated menu, and initially, a lot of our old regulars were put off by the changes. I was lying awake at night thinking I had single-handedly destroyed 3 generations of family business. But then things started to click. A local semi-famous YouTuber featured us in one of his Hidden Gems videos, and that became the catalyst for everything. More food bloggers started coming, then actual food critics from the city papers. Word spread on social media, and suddenly we were seeing 5 to 10 times our usual business, even on random Mondays. Within 2 years, we had become the hotspot for major events in our city. It wasn't uncommon for local celebrities, professional athletes, or visiting performers to book tables for special occasions. I even started arranging for high-profile guest chefs to come cook special dinners for our VIP clients, which cost me a fortune but generated incredible buzz. The transformation was so successful that during holiday season, people literally had to make reservations in July to get a table in December. We went from being that nice little Italian place to being the restaurant you need to know someone to get into. But here's the thing about me. Even though I'm the owner now, I don't just sit in some back office counting money. When we get slammed, I'm on the floor doing whatever needs to be done. Some nights that means I'm greeting people at the door. Other nights I'm buzzing tables or even mopping floors if we're short-staffed. When we have high-profile events, sure, I'll throw on a blazer and play the role of sophisticated restaurant owner. But most of the time, I'm just another guy in a server uniform making sure everything runs smoothly. This hands-on approach is partly practical. Good help is hard to find and expensive. But it's also how I was raised. My grandparents never thought they were too good to clean tables. My parents never acted like they were above taking orders, and I wasn't about to start now just because we'd gotten successful. Plus, working the floor gives me incredible insight into what's actually happening with our customers. I can spot problems before they escalate. I know which servers are struggling. I can tell when the kitchen is falling behind. You can't manage a restaurant properly from an office. So that's the context for this story. I had spent years building this place up from a neighborhood joint to a legitimate destination restaurant. I had invested everything, financially and emotionally, into making it successful. I knew every aspect of the business, every employee, every regular customer. And on this particular night, during our busiest season, when we were completely booked and I was working the floor in my server uniform, this entitled woman walked in thinking she could manipulate her way into our most exclusive table by claiming to know an owner she had never met. She had no idea she was about to try to con the very person she was lying about, and I was about to have way too much fun teaching her exactly why that was a terrible idea. So there I was on this absolutely insane December night, working the front door, because our usual host had called in sick and we were booked to capacity. The energy in the restaurant was electric. We had a local news anchor at table 12, some Instagram influencer with like 500,000 followers documenting her exclusive dining experience, and rumors were circulating that a professional hockey player might show up later. That's when I see this group of 6 women approaching our entrance, and immediately I can tell there's a hierarchy situation happening. 5 of them look like they're in their early 20s. Probably college students or recent grads, and they're all following behind this one woman who's clearly the alpha of the group. The leader looked to be in her mid-20s, and she had that particular energy that screams, "I'm used to getting my way." Designer purse, perfectly done hair and makeup despite it being a Tuesday night, and she's walking with the kind of confidence that usually means trouble for service workers. My best guess was either an older sorority sister showing off to the pledges, or maybe someone's older sister trying to impress her friends. As they're walking up, I can hear Queen Bee Karen giving her little entourage the full sales pitch. Oh my god, you guys are going to love this place. The food is absolutely incredible, and there might even be celebrities here tonight. I come here all the time. The owner is actually a personal friend of mine. Already my bullshit detector is going off because I've never seen this woman before in my life, but I'm thinking maybe she's confused us with another restaurant, or maybe she's just trying to sound important to her friends. No big deal, happens all the time. She struts up to my podium with this megawatt smile and announces, "Hi, I need a table for 6 tonight." Standard response, "Of course, can I get the name on your reservation?" And that's when the first red flag turns into a full parade of red flags. She gives me this little laugh and waves her hand dismissively. "Oh, I didn't make one, but it's totally fine. The owner is a personal friend of mine, and he told me he always keeps 1 or 2 tables open for special guests like us. We can just have one of those tonight." Now, she's not entirely wrong about the concept. A lot of high-end restaurants do keep a table or 2 available for VIP situations, and I had actually started doing that myself over the past year, but the key phrase here is special guests, as in people I actually know and have relationships with. Local business owners who send us referrals, food critics, actual celebrities, that kind of thing. This woman, never seen her before, never spoken to her, definitely never promised her anything. But I'm still giving her the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe there's been some miscommunication. So I put on my professional smile and explain, "I'm sorry, but we're not able to seat anyone without a reservation tonight. As you can see, we don't have any available tables." I'm being polite, not wanting to embarrass her in front of her friends if this is just an honest mistake. Maybe someone told her they knew the owner and could get her a table, and she misunderstood the situation. But instead of accepting this gracefully, she doubles down. She turns to one of her mini Karens and says, loud enough for other customers to hear, "Take a picture of this guy. I'm going to show it to the owner and make sure he's either cleaning toilets or fired by the end of the week." The other girls immediately start giggling and chiming in with comments like, "Yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye," and "Someone's about to learn not to mess with the wrong people." At this point, I'm realizing that either these girls are all in on some kind of scam, or they genuinely believe their leader has the connections she claims to have. Either way, the situation has gone from potential misunderstanding to deliberate attempt to intimidate and manipulate. Queen Bee Karen then launches into full entitled mode. "Look, you can either give us a table or I can make your life very difficult. This is not worth losing your job over." She's pointing at me, trying to establish dominance and throwing out lines like, "Obviously you're not anyone important here, because if you were, you would know exactly who I am and would never even think of telling me anything other than 'yes, ma'am' or 'of course, ma'am.'" She's doing everything possible to make me feel small and powerless, constantly trying to belittle me, making assumptions about my position and my paycheck, acting like I'm some disposable minimum wage worker who should be grateful she's even acknowledging my existence. And here's the thing. It was a long day, I was tired, And watching this woman try to manipulate and humiliate someone she thought was just a server was really pissing me off. Not just because she was doing it to me, but because I knew she probably treated other service workers the same way. So I'm standing there with 3 options running through my head. Option 1, drop the hammer immediately. Ma'am, I am the owner of this restaurant. We have never met, and I'm going to need you to leave. Option 2, just give her a regular table to make the problem go away and get back to my actual work. Option 3, let her dig this hole as deep as she wants to dig it and teach her a lesson she'll never forget. The way she was treating me, combined with how her friends were laughing and piling on, made the decision pretty easy. I smiled my biggest, most accommodating smile and said, "Of course, ma'am, you're absolutely right. Please, follow me." Game on. The moment I said, "Of course, ma'am, follow me," I could see the satisfaction wash over Queen Bee Karen's face. She had that smug look of someone who thinks they just successfully bullied their way to victory. She turns to her little crew with this "see how it's done" expression and starts following me through the restaurant. Now, here's where my plan gets deliciously evil. We have 3 tables that we keep available for genuine VIP situations. Actual celebrities, major business clients, food critics, that kind of thing. These aren't just regular tables with a reserved sign on them. These are premium real estate, better lighting, more space, positioned perfectly for privacy, but also for being seen if you want to be seen. Most importantly, these tables get special menus. No prices listed. It's an old-school fine dining thing that signals, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. But more than that, these menus have our ultra-premium options. Imported Wagyu beef, fresh white truffles flown in from Italy, beluga caviar, oysters shipped overnight from the West Coast. The kind of stuff that can easily run $200, $300 per dish. I'm walking them through the restaurant, and Karen is just eating up all the attention. Other diners are looking over because she's making sure to walk like she owns the place, talking loudly to her friends about how this is exactly the kind of treatment we deserve, and I told you guys this place was incredible. I seat them at our best VIP table, the one that normally costs $2,000 just for the table reservation fee, which I'm graciously not charging them for. Yet. I sincerely apologize for the confusion at the front, I tell them, laying it on thick. You're absolutely right that it would have been much simpler to just give you the table immediately. To make up for the inconvenience, your first 3 rounds of drinks tonight will be complimentary. The girls are practically bouncing in their seats at this point. Free premium drinks at the hottest restaurant in town. They think they've hit the jackpot. But then I drop the hook. We do need to keep one of your credit cards and IDs on file, just for our records. We'll return them before you leave, of course. Queen Bee Karen doesn't even hesitate. She hands over her platinum card and driver's license like she's done this 1,000 times before, telling her crew, "Don't worry, girls, tonight is completely on me." Famous last words. I take their drink orders, and of course they go straight for our most expensive cocktails. We're talking $25, $30 craft cocktails with premium spirits, but hey, the first 3 rounds are free, so why not live it up? While I'm getting their drinks, I can hear them from the bar area, and the things coming out of their mouths are just confirming that I'm making the right choice here. They're talking about how pathetic it was that I tried to deny them a table, how I clearly don't understand how things work, and how they're going to definitely be coming back here all the time now that they know they can just walk in. One of the mini Karens actually says, "I can't believe he thought he could tell US no." Like, doesn't he realize we're not the kind of people you say no to? When I bring their first round of drinks, I explain that because we're so busy tonight, there might be a slight delay on the food. But please, enjoy your cocktails, and I'll make sure to check on you regularly. They're already getting tipsy by the time I bring round 2, and that's when the real ugly starts coming out. I'm refilling their water glasses when I hear one of them say, "God, can you imagine actually working as a waiter? Like, what a depressing life. Just bringing other people food and cleaning up their messes." Another one chimes in, "I know, right? Like, what do you even tell people when they ask what you do for a living?" "Oh, I carry plates for a living?" So embarrassing. But the comment that really sealed their fate came when I was clearing their empty appetizer plates. One of the mini Karens, a blonde girl who couldn't have been older than 22, looked directly at me and asked, "Do you ever feel like your life is just worthless? I mean, all you ever became was a waiter. Doesn't that make you feel like you've completely failed at life?" The table went quiet for about 2 seconds, and then they all started giggling like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. That was it. That was the moment I went from teaching them a small lesson to, I'm about to financially destroy these people. See, up until that point, I was actually starting to feel a little bad about what I was doing. These were young women, probably college students. Maybe they just didn't know any better. Maybe I was being too harsh. But that comment? That wasn't ignorance. That was cruelty. That was someone who genuinely believes that people in service jobs are lesser human beings. And the fact that her friends thought it was hilarious told me everything I needed to know about this entire group. So I smiled my biggest, most professional smile and said, "You know what? Let me get you ladies another round of drinks, and I think you're ready to order some food now." By this point, they were definitely drunk. They'd been drinking premium cocktails on mostly empty stomachs for over an hour, and their inhibitions were completely gone. They were getting louder, more obnoxious, and more cruel with every passing minute. When I brought them the VIP menus, the ones without prices, Queen Bee Karen actually said, "Finally, a menu that doesn't insult us with tacky price listings. This is how real restaurants should operate." They started ordering like money was no object. Wagyu beef appetizers, the truffle pasta, imported oysters, caviar service, premium wine pairings. Every single item they pointed to was easily $150 to $300 per dish, but they had no idea because there were no prices listed. And they kept ordering drinks, round 4, round 5, round 6. At this point, each cocktail was costing them $30, but they were too drunk to care and too entitled to think about consequences. The worst part was listening to them talk about me while I was serving them. They thought they were being subtle, but alcohol doesn't make you quieter. It makes you think you're being quieter. "He's actually kind of cute," one of them said, "but I would never date a waiter. Like, imagine bringing him to meet your parents." "Mom, Dad, this is my boyfriend. He brings people food for a living." Another one, "He seems nice enough, but he's such a pushover. Like, we basically just walked all over him, and he completely caved. No backbone whatsoever." Queen Bee Karen. That's exactly why people like him stay in jobs like this. They don't have the spine to demand better for themselves. Every comment was like adding fuel to the fire. These weren't just drunk college girls making poor choices. These were people who had a fundamentally twisted view of how the world works and how other human beings should be treated. By the time they finished eating, each of them had racked up a bill somewhere between $500 to $600, the total. With tax and automatic gratuity, 4 parties over 6 people, committee 04, 232, 23. I printed out the check, took a deep breath, and walked over to their table with the biggest smile I could manage. "Ladies, here's your bill for this evening. Thank you so much for dining with us." I have never in my life seen someone sober up as quickly as Queen Bee Karen did when she looked at that number. The moment Queen Bee Karen's eyes hit that total, 4,232.23, it was like watching someone get hit by a truck in slow motion. Her face went from tipsy and giggly to stone-cold sober in about half a second. The color literally drained from her cheeks, and her mouth fell open like she was trying to catch flies. What is this?" she stammered, holding the bill like it was written in a foreign language. Her mini-Karens were still laughing and chatting, completely oblivious to the financial nuclear bomb that had just been dropped on their table. They were too drunk to notice their fearless leader had just gone into complete shock. "That's your bill for this evening," I said, with my most professional smile. "Is there anything that looks incorrect?" She stared at the paper for what felt like forever, her eyes scanning up and down the itemized list. I could practically see her brain trying to process how 6 people could possibly spend over $4,000 on dinner. This has to be some kind of mistake," she finally managed to say, her voice shaking slightly. "This can't be right." "Let me take a look," I said, reaching for the bill like I was genuinely concerned there might be an error. I made a big show of examining it carefully, running my finger down each line item. Let's see. 6 Wagyu beef appetizers at $180 each, 3 orders of the white truffle pasta at $22, 0 per plate, 2 caviar services at $150 each, 12 premium oysters at $15 per oyster. I was reading it like a grocery list, completely matter of fact. The mini-Karens were starting to tune in now, sensing something was wrong from their leader's body language. "Wait, what's happening?" one of them asked. "What's wrong?" Queen Bee Karen was still staring at the bill in disbelief. I need to see this again. There must be some mistake." "Of course," I said, pulling out my pen. "Let me break it down for you line by line." I started going through every single item they had ordered, explaining each charge in excruciating detail. The imported oysters they had devoured without a second thought. The bottle of champagne they had insisted on ordering, because we're celebrating. The premium cocktails they had been throwing back all night. Well, all except those first 3 rounds, which clearly showed as complimentary on the bill. As I'm explaining each charge, I can see the mini-Karens starting to panic. They're pulling out their phones, frantically trying to calculate their portion of the bill. The math is not working in their favor. But the drinks were supposed to be free," one of them whimpered. "The first 3 rounds were complimentary as promised," I explained patiently. "Everything after that was charged at our standard rates." Queen Bee Karen suddenly stood up, swaying slightly from the alcohol. "I need to use the restroom," she announced, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Part of me thought she might be planning a dine-and-dash situation, but I had her credit card and ID, so I wasn't too worried. Still, I made sure to casually mention as she walked away, "Of course, take your time. We'll keep your card safe right here." While she was gone, the mini Karens were having a full-blown meltdown at the table. "How is this possible?" one of them kept repeating. "How did we spend this much money?" "I don't have $600, another one whispered. "I don't even have $60. She said it was on her," the third one said, looking around desperately. "She promised she was paying for everything." "What if she can't pay?" the fourth one asked. "What happens to us?" I pretended not to hear their panic while I cleared some nearby tables, but internally I was loving every second of it. These were the same girls who had been laughing about my worthless life as a waiter just an hour earlier. Now they were facing the reality that their night of feeling superior was about to cost them more money than some people make in a month. Queen Bee Karen was gone for almost 15 minutes. When she came back, it was obvious she had been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes were red, and she had that blotchy face that comes from trying to stop crying and failing. She sat down and immediately launched into damage control mode. "Look," she said, trying to sound authoritative but failing miserably. "The food was honestly terrible. The drinks were watered down. The service was slow. This is completely unacceptable, and I think the very least you can do is cut this bill in half." The mini Karens were nodding eagerly, grasping at any hope that they might escape this financial disaster. "Even if you cut it in half," Queen Bee continued, "the girls will have to chip in to help me pay, even though I told them tonight was on me." I could see the betrayal in the mini Karen's eyes. Their fearless leader, who had promised them a free night out, was now asking them to help pay for her lies. But then Queen Bee Karen played what she thought was her ace in the hole. "And besides," she said, pulling out her phone with a triumphant expression, "I told you I'm friends with the owner. Let me just show you our text conversation, and then you'll understand why this bill needs to be adjusted." She held up her phone, showing me a series of text messages with someone listed as restaurant name plus owner in her contacts. The messages were clearly fake. Generic responses like, "Of course, always happy to accommodate special guests," and "Just ask for the VIP table, they'll take care of you." I looked at the messages, then clicked on the contact info. "Ma'am, this isn't the owner's phone number." Without missing a beat, she replied, "He has multiple phones for business purposes. Of course you don't know all of his numbers. You're just a waiter." Even in her moment of desperation, she couldn't resist trying to put me in my place. "Tell you what," I said, my voice getting slightly less accommodating. "How about we call him right now? If he says it's okay to take 50% off your bill, I'll do it immediately." The look of pure terror that flashed across her face was absolutely priceless. She started backpedaling faster than a cyclist going downhill. He's probably asleep. It's late. We shouldn't bother him." "It's only 9:30 p.m., I pointed out. "Most restaurant owners are still working at this hour." "He's traveling. He's in a different time zone." "Which time zone?" I don't know exactly where he is right now." The mini Karens were watching this exchange like a tennis match, their hope fading with every pathetic excuse their leader made. That's when Queen Bee Karen made her final, fatal mistake. Instead of accepting defeat gracefully, she decided to go nuclear. "This is ridiculous," she shouted, loud enough that every remaining customer in the restaurant turned to look. "I know the owner of this restaurant. I eat here all the time. This is completely unacceptable service, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows how terribly we were treated." She was pointing at me, her voice getting higher and more hysterical with every word. "You're just some minimum wage server who thinks he can rip off customers? Well, I've got news for you. I'm going to get you fired. I'm going to post about this on every social media platform. I'm going to make sure no one ever eats at this dump again." The entire restaurant had gone quiet. Other diners were pulling out their phones, some probably recording the meltdown. My staff was looking over from behind the bar, ready to call security if needed. That's when I decided it was time to end this charade. I looked her directly in the eyes, and my voice dropped to a much less accommodating tone. "Ma'am, I need you to cut the crap right now." The change in my demeanor caught her off guard. She stopped mid-rant, probably not expecting the pushover waiter to suddenly grow a backbone. "First of all," I continued, "you need to lower your voice immediately, or I will call the police and have you removed for disturbing other guests." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no sound came out. "Second, you don't know the owner. You have never been to this restaurant before tonight. You have never spoken to anyone in management, and you definitely never made any arrangements for special treatment." The mini Karens were frozen, sensing that something fundamental had shifted in this conversation. "And third," I said, pulling myself up to my full height and letting my voice carry just enough authority that nearby tables could hear, "my grandparents founded this restaurant. My family has been running this place for 3 generations. I have worked here almost my entire life." Queen Bee Karen's face went from red with anger to white with dawning horror. "I am the one and only owner of this restaurant. I have never once seen you, heard of you, or spoken to you before tonight. And I definitely never made any promises to a complete stranger that I've never met." The silence at their table was deafening. The mini Karens looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. Queen Bee Karen's mouth was hanging open in shock. "Now," I continued, I gave you the table you wanted, one of our premium VIP tables that normally requires a $2,000 reservation fee, which I didn't charge you. I gave you 3 rounds of complimentary drinks, and I provided you with excellent service all evening. I placed the bill back down in front of her. You will pay this bill in full, or I will call the police and provide them with the credit card and ID you voluntarily gave me, along with security footage of everything that happened tonight. Queen Bee Karen burst into tears. The moment I revealed I was the owner, Queen Bee Karen completely crumbled. We're talking full ugly crying, mascara running down her cheeks, that hiccuping sob that happens when someone realizes they've screwed up beyond all repair. The mini Karens just sat there in stunned silence, looking like they'd witnessed a car accident. I didn't know, she stammered through her tears. I'm so sorry, You never meant to get caught, I corrected her. There's a difference. She was frantically wiping her face with napkins, trying to compose herself, but the damage was done. Every other table in the restaurant was watching this meltdown unfold, and I could see people whispering and pointing. Some were definitely recording with their phones. This was about to become someone's viral TikTok story. Please, she begged. I can't afford this. This is more money than I make in 2 months. Can't we work something out? The mini Karens were already pulling out their purses, counting crumpled $20 bills and loose change like they were trying to buy a car with pocket money. Between all 5 of them, they managed to scrape together maybe $200 in cash. We'll pay you back, one of them promised Queen Bee Karen. We'll figure something out. We'll get you the money somehow. But I could see the math wasn't working. Even if they pooled every dollar they had, they were still looking at over $4,000 in charges. Queen Bee Karen was staring at her credit card like it was a death sentence. I'll have to call my parents, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Oh God, I'll have to tell them what happened. That's between you and your family, I said, not unkindly but firmly. This bill needs to be paid tonight before you leave. She picked up the pen with shaking hands and signed the receipt. I could see her calculating the tip. Even with everything that had happened, she still left the standard 18% that was automatically added for parties over 6. I guess even in her moment of complete humiliation, she didn't want to make things worse by stiffing the waiter. As they were gathering their things to leave, Queen Bee Karen looked up at me one more time. Are you going to post about this online? Please don't make this go viral or anything. Well, I don't need to post anything, I told her. Half the restaurant already recorded your meltdown. That's out of my hands now. The mini Karens were practically carrying their leader toward the exit, all of them looking like they wanted to disappear into the floor. As they reached the door, I heard one of them say, I can't believe we have to pay rent with our credit cards this month because of this. After they left, the restaurant slowly returned to normal, but I could feel the energy had shifted. Other diners were looking at me with a new kind of respect. Word was already spreading that the waiter, who had just handled that situation, was actually the owner. Several customers approached me throughout the rest of the evening to compliment how I'd handled the situation. My staff was buzzing with excitement. Boss, that was incredible, my bartender said. I can't believe you let it go that far before dropping the hammer. Sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way, I replied, though honestly, I was still processing everything that had just happened. I took the signed receipt back to my office and looked at it for a long time. $4,232.23. It was by far the largest single check we'd ever had from a party that size. The irony wasn't lost on me. Queen Bee Karen's lies and entitlement had just generated more revenue in one night than we usually made in a week during our slow season. But the real satisfaction wasn't financial. It was knowing that 6 people who thought they could manipulate and humiliate service workers had just learned a very expensive lesson about treating people with respect. 2 days later, I was in my back office working on inventory when my bartender knocked on the door. Boss, there's a guy out front who wants to speak with you. He seems pretty angry and he's got someone with him. I walked out to the dining room to find a man in his 50s, red-faced and clearly furious, standing next to a very familiar-looking young woman who was keeping her head down and refusing to make eye contact. Queen Bee, Karen's father. Are you the owner of this place? He demanded. I am. How can I help you? My daughter says you overcharged her for dinner the other night. She says there was some kind of misunderstanding about prices, and you took advantage of her. I looked at Queen Bee Karen, who was still staring at the floor. Is that what she told you happened? She said the menus didn't have prices, and you deliberately gave her expensive items without telling her how much they cost. Would you like to see the security footage from that night? I asked. We have excellent audio and video coverage of our VIP section. His confident expression faltered slightly. Security footage? Absolutely. Why don't you both come back to my office, and I'll show you exactly what happened. For the next 20 minutes, Queen Bee Karen's father watched his daughter lie, manipulate, insult, and humiliate what she thought was a minimum wage worker. He saw her fake the text messages, heard her cruel comments about service workers, and witnessed her complete meltdown when the bill arrived. By the time the footage ended, his anger had completely shifted targets. He stood up without saying a word, grabbed his daughter by the arm, and marched toward the exit. As they reached the door, I could hear him starting to tear into her. "Do you have any idea how embarrassed I am right now? How could you behave like that? What is wrong with you?" I never saw or heard from either of them again, but I did frame that receipt and hang it on my office wall as a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions. Looking back on that night, I've had a lot of time to think about what really happened and what it says about how we treat each other in this world. On the surface, it's a pretty satisfying revenge story, entitled "People Get Their Comeuppance, Justice is Served, Everyone Claps." But the more I've reflected on it, the more I realize this incident revealed something much deeper and more troubling about our society. The thing that still haunts me isn't the money they spent or even the lies they told. It's that comment. Do you ever feel like your life is just worthless since all you ever became was a waiter? Think about that for a second. This young woman genuinely believed that someone's worth as a human being was determined by their job title and paycheck. In her mind, I was literally less valuable as a person because I was serving her food. That's not just entitlement, that's a fundamentally broken worldview that sees entire categories of people as disposable. And here's what really gets me. She wasn't trying to be cruel in that moment. She was just casually expressing what she actually believed to be true. To her, it was like commenting on the weather. That level of casual dehumanization is terrifying because it's so normalized in her world that she didn't even recognize it as offensive. The worst part? Her friends thought it was hilarious. This wasn't one bad apple. This was a whole group of people who had been raised to believe that service workers exist in some lower tier of humanity. They genuinely couldn't understand why anyone would choose to work in a restaurant unless they had somehow failed at life. But here's what they didn't understand. I chose to work the floor that night. I chose to greet customers, bus tables, and take orders, even though I could sit in my office all day if I wanted to. I do it because I believe that understanding every aspect of your business makes you a better owner. I do it because my grandparents taught me that no honest work is beneath you. And I do it because staying connected to your customers and employees is the only way to really know what's happening in your restaurant. The irony is that their classist assumptions almost cost them the chance to learn this lesson. If I had been just a waiter, like they assumed, they probably would have gotten away with their behavior. They would have bullied their way to a free table, treated the staff like garbage, and walked away thinking they were clever for gaming the system. Instead, they learned that you never really know who you're talking to. That worthless waiter might be the owner. That person cleaning your office building might have a PhD. The cashier at the grocery store might be working their way through medical school. When you treat people badly based on assumptions about their status or income, you're not just being cruel, you're being stupid. But the lesson goes deeper than just be nice because you never know who has power. The real lesson is that everyone deserves basic human respect, regardless of their job, their income, or their position in life. The problem isn't that they were rude to someone who turned out to be important. The problem is that they thought it was okay to be rude to someone they perceived as unimportant. I've been thinking a lot about Queen Bee Karen's father, too. The look on his face when he watched that security footage wasn't just embarrassment, it was genuine shock. I don't think he had any idea his daughter was capable of that level of cruelty. Which makes me wonder, where do these attitudes come from? How do we raise kids who think it's acceptable to treat service workers like subhumans? Maybe it's because we've created a society where worth is measured by wealth and status instead of character and kindness. Maybe it's because we've normalized the idea that some jobs are better than others instead of recognizing that all honest work has dignity. Or maybe it's because we've forgotten that the person serving your food, cleaning your hotel room, or ringing up your groceries is someone's child, parent, or sibling. A full human being with dreams, struggles, and feelings. The truth is, I didn't teach Queen Bee Karen and her friends that lesson that night. I just forced them to face the consequences of attitudes they already had. Real change would require them to examine why they thought it was okay to treat people that way in the first place. But maybe that's enough. Maybe sometimes the best education is simply showing people that actions have consequences, that words have power, and that the universe has a funny way of humbling those who think they're above basic human decency. At the very least, I'm pretty confident that Queen Bee Karen will think twice before lying about knowing restaurant owners. And hopefully, just hopefully, she'll also think twice before treating service workers like they're less than human. Because at the end of the day, we're all just people trying to make it through this world with a little dignity intact. So here we are, almost 2 years later, and that framed receipt is still hanging on my office wall. $4,232.23. A constant reminder that sometimes the universe has a sense of humor, and sometimes karma comes with a side of imported oysters and premium cocktails. I wish I could tell you that this story had some kind of perfect Hollywood ending where Queen Bee Karen learned her lesson, became a better person, and we all lived happily ever after. But real life doesn't work that way. The truth is, I have no idea if she actually changed or if she just learned to be more careful about who she tries to manipulate. What I do know is that this incident changed something in me. I used to think that the best way to handle difficult customers was just give them what they wanted and move on. Keep the peace, avoid confrontation, protect the business reputation. But that night taught me that sometimes standing up to bullies, even when you're in a position to just make the problem go away, is worth it. My staff definitely noticed the change. Word spread pretty quickly through our team about what had happened, and I could see a new level of respect in how they interacted with me. But more importantly, I noticed they started standing up for themselves more with difficult customers. When you show your employees that you won't tolerate people treating them badly, it creates a different kind of workplace culture. We've actually had a few similar situations since then. Not quite as dramatic, but customers who tried to lie their way into special treatment or who were unnecessarily rude to my staff. Each time, I've been much quicker to shut it down. I've learned that protecting your employees from abusive customers isn't just the right thing to do morally. It's good business. Happy employees provide better service, and customers can sense when a staff feels supported and confident. The restaurant industry has this weird culture where the customer is always right gets taken to ridiculous extremes. We're expected to smile and take abuse because someone is paying for food. But here's the thing. Customers who treat your staff badly aren't customers you want to keep. They create a toxic environment that drives away good employees and makes other diners uncomfortable. Since that night, we've actually implemented a policy that we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who is abusive to our staff. It's posted right by the front door, and we've had to use it a few times. Guess what? Our employee turnover dropped significantly, our service improved, and our regular customers love the fact that they don't have to listen to some entitled person screaming at servers while they're trying to enjoy their dinner. The viral aspect of the story was interesting too. Someone did record parts of Queen Bee Karen's meltdown, and it made the rounds on social media for a few weeks. We got a ton of new customers who wanted to eat at that restaurant where the owner destroyed the lying Karen. Business actually increased by about 30% for several months afterward. But the comments on those videos were what really stuck with me. Hundreds of service workers sharing their own stories of being treated like garbage by entitled customers. People talking about how they'd been made to feel worthless because of their jobs. It made me realize that what happened that night wasn't unique. It was just one example of something that happens every single day in restaurants, retail stores, and service businesses across the country. That's why I'm sharing this story now. Not because I think I'm some kind of hero for embarrassing a rude customer, but because I want people to understand that the person serving you is a human being who deserves basic respect. They might be working their way through college, supporting their family, or yes, they might even own the place. But even if they don't, even if they're just a server or just a cashier or just a janitor, they still deserve to be treated with dignity. Your food service worker isn't your servant, and paying for a meal doesn't give you the right to be cruel to another human being. So the next time you're out to eat or shopping or dealing with any kind of service worker, remember Queen Bee Karen. Remember that your words have power, that kindness costs nothing, and that you never really know who you're talking to. And if you're someone who works in the service industry and you've ever been made to feel small or worthless because of your job, remember that you matter. Your work has value. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe serves up a little justice with a side of very expensive wine. Have you ever dealt with customers like this? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear how other people have handled entitled customers who thought they could lie and manipulate their way to special treatment. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make an honest living and be treated with a little respect. Is that really too much to ask?